Despite being a final year student in the Department of Theoretical Linguistics at the University of Boya at the time, I was in Bamenda and an onlooker on that day, what is now referred to as Mancho BBC's Coffin Revolution. Teachers were on strike, and in the absence of classes I traveled to Bamenda to visit friends. The next day I would go out for my visits, unaware of what I would get caught up in. Mancho BBC, a popular community figure, had rallied some youths to the Bamenda City Council to address the government delegate at the time, Mr. Ndomo, and protest the poor state of roads, exorbitant market rents, and other evidence of bad governance. That same day, the regional wing of the ruling party, CPDM, was holding a rally along Bamenda's Commercial Avenue, and Mancho's followers soon decided to disrupt the rally, knowing that those who had the power to change the state of things, like Mr. Ndomo, would be in attendance. But the rally and the approach of the young men bent on disrupting the event had caused traffic and garnered the attention of people in surrounding buildings, business owners, hawkers, all those who, like myself, were on the way elsewhere. All onlookers stood on the pavements and tar islands, trying to capture every moment as the mob approached, and military officers dispatched to guard the ruling party members. The atmosphere was tense, but up until then it had been clear who was a threat to whom, and I felt safe as an onlooker on the pavement watching history happen. But things soon changed for the worst when the military decided to use water cannons to push back the angry mob and prevent them from accessing the rally site. Some individuals in the surrounding crowd started shooting stones and other objects towards the cannon. In the space of seconds, what was clearly a confrontation between a group led by Mancho BBC and those protecting the CPDM rally became chaos. The police attacked the crowd indiscriminately with tear gas grenades. They ignored the cries of business owners who had been watching from their property and used their batons on whoever was not dressed as they were or dressed for the rally. Seeing that it was no longer clear who was an enemy and the police were certainly no one's friend, I tried to leave, but I failed. I was picked up by two gendarmes who ignored my cries of being an innocent onlooker. I was transported to the Legion in Bamenda with mix of other men, most of us onlookers who had been dragged to the police truck without even a question as to our identities. At the Legion, the colonel in charge of the unit instructed that we should be beaten without charge, and 6 men pounced on us mercilessly. It is after the beating that we were forced to give our statements, punished first and questions asked later. In my statement, I made it clear that I was not with the mob and had only been an onlooker trying to follow the events, but I was told that statement would not be accepted. I was forced to recount that I was sent by Mancho BBC to disrupt the event. That was the only thing the officers would put into writing, and with that, I was locked up in a cell with many others who had been arrested. The cell was so congested, and I was so frail from the beatings we had received that I was directed to lie on the lap of a larger man who had been arrested with me. The following morning, an order came instructing that we should be flown to Yaoundé for proper investigation. We were then transported to the Bafut airport, where some received more beatings. My frail look saved me from being beaten this time. I had never thought my first flight experience would be in a military plane as the victim of an arbitrary arrest with my hands tied to my back. But that was how we were transported to Yaoundé. Surprisingly, we were treated better by the colonel that received us in Yaoundé. He instructed that none of us should be exposed to any torture for whatever reason, and we were transferred to Seed, where we were given medical attention and fresh investigations opened. I will never forget the words of the lieutenant colonel who was assigned to take my statement anew. He said, "I am not a prophet or a native doctor to see through you, but the truth shall set you free. And if you speak the truth, God will see you out of here in no time. I recounted my story as it happened that fateful day in Bamenda, and he asked me to go back to my cell. Weeks passed, Christmas, New Year's, they passed. I fell ill and was taken to the military hospital camp, Yaya, to be treated for malaria. But on the 9th of January 2017, at about 11 p.m., while I was still receiving treatment at the military premise, an officer walked in, called my name and told me, "You are free and we are taking you home." My Anglophone Crisis story is a story of unforeseen circumstance, both in arrest and release.
Hi, my name is Faith Fidel, and today I will be telling you my story. In 2018, my sister left the house to empty the trash into the garbage truck. On her way back, she was taken by some military men with other girls. During the hours of her custody with the military, my mother railed the community, made so much noise about the kidnapping that it attracted the attention of the military. After about 9 hours, we found my sister on a very lonely street, still breathless, and she was scared to speak. The other girl she was with had been killed. That day, the military stormed into our compound and they were searching for my mom everywhere. They went to our previous building, our previous apartment, because we moved to the apartment downstairs, and they were asking for my mom. They went door to door asking for her. We couldn't open the door and watch them. We had to look through the window. But after a while, they left the compound. That night, our neighbors advised that we had to leave town because we weren't safe there. So everything my mother worked for, we had to leave behind. Her driving school, which was her side job from teaching, her car, we left behind as we went to Douala. We later found out that all of those things had been burnt as we left, so there was no chance of getting them back. We ended up transferring to Douala overnight. We could only find a 1-bedroom apartment which was uncompleted, but we later found out that our belongings, which were still in Bamenda, had been stolen, which meant we had nothing to start a new life with. While in Douala, my mom suffered from a partial stroke. Had more bad news, finding out that my brother had been shot. My brother, who was studying at the University of Boya, was shot, arrested, and accused of being a separatist. My brother studied at the St. Joseph's College in Sase, was an excellent student, excellent grades, passed his advanced levels with 5 papers, and now he's in prison with a fate that is unsure. Knowing we could not take care of my mother, she was a patient in an apartment which had parts of the wall falling from time to time. We had to move in with my cousin.
My name is Dibenja. Although this crisis started over 4 years ago, it was like a dream to many of us. Unreal. I don't think I understood the seriousness of it until April 2020. In April 2020, my entire village was brought to its knees. Half of my village, Bokoso, was set ablaze by unidentified gunmen who claimed the village was a military hideout. Years of toil by families ruined in the blink of an eye. Our houses, memories of my childhood, the labor of my parents, all gone down in a split second. I was in Boya when it all happened, but my parents and siblings were in the village. During this operation, a group of villagers were kidnapped, and my mom, unfortunately, was one of them. When I got the call, I felt like the head collapsed beneath my feet. I had read and seen stories of victims of kidnap, the violence and brutality that had befallen them, and I couldn't imagine my mother going through that kind of treatment, especially after losing everything in the fire. My dad, who had been working on the farm, only returned to an empty piece of land with a wife in captivity. When the men finally made contact on phone, they were asking for a ransom for her to be released. That right there was the first time in my life I had a billion thoughts in my head. I mean about all possibilities of getting money. They were asking, After days of negotiation and bargaining, a ransom was paid and my mom released. It was like life was renewed in me and the family, despite having lost everything else. She relocated to Limbe as an IDP, but my dad stayed in the village because farming is our only source of income. He was ready to continuously bear the risk to make sure he can still make a living for his family. It is a courage and resilience that I can't qualify properly. But my story didn't just end there. A few months ago, before the start of the last session of the GCE, my kid sister was taken away by gunmen on her way from school. When they tried to run away with her, she went unconscious and they abandoned her and ran away. She got rescued by a good Samaritan who revived her. This is my Anglophone Crisis story so far. The crisis forces us to sleep with one eye open, always looking over your shoulders, fearing for the worst. If you have ever known peace, valued peace, then you know how crippling the crisis has been. Living in a nightmare, wondering what happens next.
I enrolled in the Faculty of Health Sciences, University of Boya, in October 2016, and the turmoil started a few weeks later. By January 2017, it was a hot mess. I felt like an accomplice to the crisis. Considering that I am an Anglophone Cameroonian, I was torn between supporting the Anglophones for the crisis or being against it and being called a traitor. My thoughts were always conflicted, and I found it impossible to express my stand on the issue. Being an FHS student meant I was always around French-speaking people, some of whom are my friends. But no matter how nice they were to me, I was always uncomfortable when the topic of the Anglophone crisis came up. There was some unseen pressure to pick a side, and my decision depended on if I was in the presence of Anglophones or Francophones. Some of them used to say that my brothers are causing instability in the country, forcing kids out of classrooms and committing atrocities in the name of fighting for freedom. I know they meant no harm, but I always felt a pang of guilt. I was tormented by the fact that I'm a gender-based violence activist. Yet, I share roots with humans who are behind beatings, destruction, and killings. It became worse when we could not apply for internships or funding from international bodies because the Anglophone crisis put Cameroon on the list of countries that have no respect for human rights with a civil war on the way. The hospital wasn't any better. Doctors and nurses alike would throw snide remarks now and then whenever students couldn't come to the hospital on ghost town days during their internship. It was almost like we were getting blamed for something we had no part in causing in the first place. Living and schooling in the Anglophone region during this crisis has made me doubt my values and question what I stand for. Am I truly the outspoken activist who is against all form of violence? Or am I a coward who won't say a word because my Anglophone brothers are seemingly fighting for freedom and equity? Am I biased in my thoughts of who is wrong and who is right because of my training and experiences? Is it okay to be neutral, or should I pick a side and watch the drama unfold? Do I genuinely seek peace because it is right, or is it because I am scared I may lose someone I love?
My Anglophone crisis story. It is not mine to tell, but I tell it anyway because the protagonist is dead. On the 1st of October 2017, what was supposed to be a peaceful march on the streets of my form Queen Bamenda by those calling for cessation ended up claiming the life of my uncle, a man I loved so dearly, a kind and cheerful man, but also a poor and disabled man who could not run fast enough when the violence broke out between the protesters carrying leaves to symbolize freedom, chanting songs as they celebrated their independence, and the armed forces. Reluctantly dragging his crutches, my uncle had been trying to escape the gunshots he could hear just outside his home from the march and counterattack. He took his life savings and stepped out thinking to find a better place to hide, but soon found his death. We were told he was robbed, brutally beaten, and shot to death. His body was bundled and dumped in front of the Bamenda Regional Hospital like a worthless piece of cloth. What I wish people understood is that whenever things are bad, those who are disabled have it harder. Perhaps if more people understood this, able people will not start what would affect those who never had a say in it. People like my uncle.
Soaked in pain, drowned in blood, drenched in fear and caged by death, our hearts hang on hope, the belief in a smile to come. Like a joke, it started, each day breaking with us thinking it's the last, hoping the solution is drawing nearer. But each day, peace went farther, leaving us crying like chicks without a mother. Know you about Pinyi, know you about Menka, know you about Gabu, or I tell you about Kumba. And all other days we couldn't sleep. The scary stories kept coming in, telling there's no hiding place, for life hangs loosely like a pendulum. From afar, you would see how fast the value of life fades away. Every day breaking with bodies on the streets and frightening atrocities. Is it 40, 38, 29, 50? We sure have lost count, but we sure know about the mass graves and fruits of our wombs gone into flames. Yet hope dwells here. In the way hearts beat daily, running to jobs and planning for tomorrow no one is sure of. Hope is in the love we share, even in pain we still offer a shoulder for a brother. In the hearts that ran away from home yet held their pieces and said it is never over until it is indeed over. See them giving their all for a new start. That's a glimpse of hope in this darkened corner. Hope doesn't say all is well. Neither does it mean the turmoil is over. Hope doesn't reverse the evil, no patch back pieces of our broken hearts, but it holds us up for yet another try as we pray for lasting peace and for all fighting cease. Hope is in the day we will walk down the street freely, fearing not he who watches. It is the day the quacking of the birds will not be a sign they are coming, but a song of joy telling us to wake up and bask in this morning glory. It is us not fearing our houses being turned ashes. Hope is the day a child will know no prejudice. Neither will the little one run to tell about the next corpse, know how good or bad the fight has gone was, for there will be no place again for them to see these things. Hope is life, a reason to hold on a little more, believing that our blood wasn't shed for nothing, no, our tears just lost love. Hope is believing that the one who died was the last and that our cry will be heard this time. Hope is me, you, standing for the truth, me, you, speaking up even though we might be the next. Hope is me, you, taking this path of righteousness though we may not wake to see.
Today I draw the tears that slid off of cheeks and I drained into a dry well of our attention. You cannot see them though they have their smell all over our eyes. You cannot hear them because they speak a dialect of pain and suffering, something foreign to our ears. Today I draw the screams that echo endlessly, never finding a compassionate heart to reflect on. Today I draw a child whose smile is decayed from the friendship of war that sleeps underneath their skin and seeps into dreams and bloodstreams. They place the weight of peace on my shoulders.
My heart longs for the day when we all realize that regardless of who we are, where we're from, or what we believe, we are each unique ripples of the same ocean.